welcome to my channel. This is probably going to be one of the first videos that I put up on this channel. This will be my second channel. I do have another channel, and that's about, I'm actually traveling through Southeast Asia at the moment, and that is more about those things. And I wanted to start another channel because I got something to say, and everybody has a fucking opinion, right? And so why not just hear mine? This video is going to be about the Evergreen College and what's going over there and my perspective on it. It's been tons of videos already about that, and if you don't know what Evergreen College is, like, welcome, I guess. But I wanted to talk about that. But before I get into that, and if you don't want to hear the backstory, you can just skip ahead. Before I get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I started this channel and a bit about my background so you can see where I'm coming from. So why I started this channel was because I felt like in today's sort of social atmosphere, especially on social media, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, that there are always two really extremes. There's either the crazy, regressive, liberal, feminist, third wave feminist, progressive feminist, or alright, super like Republican, right-wing Trump supporters, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of people in the middle. I think now, you know, people are trying to bridge the gap, but it just doesn't seem a lot of like voices of reason in the middle of all that. Is either the crazy like SJWs, or it's the anti-SJWs, or it's the crazy feminist, or it's the anti-feminist. And again, I just want to be like in the middle. And as my channel goes on and as I make more videos, sometimes it may seem like I'm leaning more to the anti-SJWs, and maybe sometimes it seems like I'm leaning to the other side, because believe it or not, despite what you see on social media, the majority of the population are in the middle. The majority of the population have nuance to their ideas and their beliefs and their ideology. The majority of the population aren't extremes. It's just people who are extreme, unfortunately, are the loudest. And so it seems like that is the majority, but it's not. And so I wanted to make a video for the people that are in the middle. I'm black and I'm female, but I also have moderate views, and I don't subscribe to all feminists or separatists or pro-black people. I do and I don't. You'll see where I'm coming from as videos go on. I'm black and I'm female, but I also belong to the LGBTQ community. I am bisexual, maybe pansexual, I'm not sure. But again, I still have moderate views, but I do understand where the LGBTQ plus community is coming from. I believe in alternative relationships. I've been in polyamorous relationships, I've been in open relationships, but also been in monogamous relationships, so I understand where people from monogamy and who wants to get married and have children and stuff like that are coming from. I'm a spiritual person. I do not like religion, but I grew up in a very religious household. I was born Muslim and then converted into Christianity, and so I understand religion, but at the same time, I'm not religious. I grew up very, very Afrocentric. I grew up with African music and wearing dashikis and African garb. I have an auntie that go to Ghana every year and brought us back African things. So we went to every African festival, or any like the African museums. I was very much taught my roots and taught where I come from, and black is beautiful and be proud to be black. I loved Erykah Badu and Lauryn Hill and Bob Marley. I listened to a lot of like black artists growing up, but I also love Nirvana and Florence and the Machine and opera, you know what I mean? So I feel like I have a different perspective as a black woman. And so yeah, so I grew up in a very Afrocentric family, but I also grew up in a very racist family. And yes, I believe black people can be racist. I grew up in a family that hated white people. I grew up in a family that I was reminded on a daily basis and told on a daily basis how horrible white people were, how racist white people were, how we have a distaste for them, a disdain for them, and mistrust of them. I was told about the history of why we don't like white people. I was told that white people were literally devils, and I mean literally devils with white skin pulled over them. I like, my family never said to like hate white people, but for the most part, in so many words, that was that's what they were trying to breed into me. It's like, just don't like white people. We don't mix with them. It's us against them. You know, that's it. It's always the white man's fault. White people are keeping us down. We are oppressed. And that's why I don't understand why a lot of these like young black millennials think claiming your oppression is somehow being woke, and this is a new revelation or a new conversation, because this conversation has been going on for a very long time. It's nothing new. It's just a repeat of history. So I was very much in that type of family. So I understand a lot of this vernacular, a lot of this, where a lot of this is coming from, because I grew up in a family that was very much like this. Granted that a lot of my family have evolved and grown into better people, and some of them have dropped this ideology and some of them haven't, but growing up I was very much like, don't be white people's friends. They're horrible. Like, they're assholes. But I remember when I was about 5 years old, like early as 5, and I remember this clear as day. I was sitting in class, and I grew up in a very like black community. Like, I grew up in the city of Detroit, Michigan, and back in the day where it was very, very segregated. Like, in the inner city, there was pretty much 98% or 99.2% black people. So my neighborhood was black. My church, my mosque was black. When I started going to church in Michigan, it was black. Like majority of my classmates were black, if not, like, I think once I got to middle school, they all were black. But in elementary school, there were like a couple of white kids, and I remember actually, like 5 years old, like staring at like Sally Sue, like sitting in front of me, literally examining her skin, trying to find the seam where she must have pulled her skin over, because I believe what they said. At first I was like, they're demons, it's white skin pulled over them. But I remember like sitting back and very much like saying to myself, like, she's just a kid like me. Like, she's just a kid. She's just a fucking human being. And very clearly thinking like, my family is just confused. Like, she's just a kid. And throughout my life, it's not like I've never been called, no one's ever behaved racist towards me. I've been called nigger multiple times. I've been profiled. I have been followed in stores. I even at age 14 had a couple of cops pull a gun out on me, profiling me to be a robber, like someone who robbed a KFC. Found out later the person that they were looking for was a grown-ass man who looked nothing like me besides the color of her skin. So I have gone through all those things, but still I haven't lost my humanity in the process, and I still look at people as individuals and not just label them all a part of the problem. Also, I had a very, very, very volatile and abusive, dysfunctional childhood. I had, I had two dads, but I didn't realize I had two dads until I was 14. But my dad's left when I was younger. My stepfather left when I was about 11. My mom was extremely abusive, and no, I'm not talking about like your typical stitch a cord, switch off a tree abusive. Like, I got stabbed abuse. Like, my mom was extremely abusive. I was sexually assaulted as an adult by two guys. I was molested as a child. I've been beat up by a boyfriend. I've gone through a lot of shit. So a lot of times when I see people, like, I have a very, very short tolerance for people bitching up, complaining about petty little things. And so sometimes I come across as, I deal with things with like a tough love type of view, because like, if I can get over that and I can make my life amazing and be victorious in this life, then you can too. And I don't want to hear about like the microaggressions that you face and that's the reason why you failed in life. Like, no. So I have a very tough love point of view, but at the same time, I am coming from a good place. I want to see people win. I love everybody, but of course I have a special place in my heart for people of my color, because of our history, and I want to see people win. And I do think I see a lot of stuff in social media that is not actually going to uplift anybody, and it's just going to keep us in the same recycled story over and over again. The same anger, frustration that keeps you on a very low frequency and low mindset level that's never going to get you anywhere. And so if it sounds like harsh, I'm not coming from a bad place. I'm literally coming from a place of love and a good place, and I want to see people win. Anyway, if you've made it this far of my backstory and why I started this channel, I'm not just going to talk about race, by the way. I'm going to talk about like race, gender, sex, sexual orientation, and whatever else is fucking people are flipping out, and culture and the news and society today. I'm going to talk about a lot of things in this channel. So I just wanted to give that update or that backstory, which I'll probably repeat in other videos so people understand where I'm coming from. So if you have made it this far, now let's actually talk about the topic of the story, which is Evergreen College. Evergreen College is one of the most pathetic institutions of higher learning that I've ever witnessed in my life. But Evergreen College isn't the only university that has displayed this sort of biased teaching that, Evergreen has been caught doing. A lot of universities are doing this, and they've been doing it for a while and gotten away with it. When I first started college in my freshman year, I went to Michigan State in Detroit, Michigan. And I had a teacher that was very blatantly racist. Didn't try to hide it. Didn't even like say like just little things to sort of get it in there to like, you know, cover it up in language. No, she was very like, I don't like white people. I don't like them. They're devils. They're evil. They're racist. They're bigots. All these things. She made it very clear that she did not want white students. That she would be more comfortable if the white students would leave her class. She was very Afrocentric, pro-black, and very, very anti-white, very separatist. So yeah, so I definitely believe that that happens, and I understand where these students are coming from, because even when I was in school, I didn't know what to do about that situation. Like, of course, in my head, I was like, this has to be against the rules, but I never complained. I never went forth, and nobody did. None of the white students, not that I know of, maybe they did, and the university just told them to suck it up. I'm not really sure. But anyway, so I believe I've experienced it myself. That was the only teacher I had like that. I even got caught in her crosshairs because I straightened my hair at the time, and she called me she called me a new slave, a modern slave, and said I was mentally enslaved because I straightened my hair, therefore I hate myself. And then she had us write a paper. It was a literature class, and I love to write. That's one of my favorite things to do, is tell stories, and probably one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel was to talk and tell stories and give my perspective. And so she told us that we needed to write a paper about why we were proud to be black and why we were ashamed to be black. And when she first told us the topic, of course, I thought it was quite strange. Like, why would I talk about being ashamed to be black? Because I'm very proud of my blackness. Despite my family being sort of racist, one of the things I did take away from my family was be proud of your blackness, that black was beautiful. So I never went through that phase of wanting to be anything but black. So when she asked us to talk about like being ashamed, I was like, that's weird. But I thought like it was just like this new way of getting us to think outside the box and make us be like philosophical and critical thinkers and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I take the challenge on. So I wrote the paper following the directions that she gave us, because that's what I assumed she wanted us to do. And so I wrote about why I was proud to be black, which is very easy, and then I wrote about, you know, why I was ashamed to be black, because that was the direction she gave us. But no, it turned out that it was just a trick question. She didn't actually want us to write about why we were ashamed to be black, even though that was the direction she gave us. So when I got my paper back, and I kind of pride myself of being a good writer. Like, I've always gotten really good grades in any type of writing, English, literature, debate classes, speech classes I've ever had. But when I got my paper back, I got a low grade, and I had all these red marks on my paper. And red marks are usually saved for corrections or maybe side notes, and there were no corrections really. She wasn't saying like this is a fragment sentence, or this is a runoff sentence, or this a quotation should have been here, or a comma should have been here, or this is misspelled, or this is repeated, or anything like that. It was no actual corrections that would actually teach me anything. It was just her opinions that she didn't like my opinions. That's pretty much all it was. And she liked everything I said when I said about being proud to be black. She was like, right on, yeah, power to the black people. But then when I talked about being ashamed to be black, she was like, well, actually, but white people. But yeah, that happened, but white people. But I get that, but white people. White people, white people, white people. And that was pretty much all my notes. So Evergreen College for me it's like embarrassing almost. Like, you're embarrassed for that college. And so if you don't know what's going on at Evergreen College because you've been in a coma for the last few months, Evergreen College is like an extremely liberal college, and they make no secrets about that. If you go on a page, it's all barista degrees, you know, like philosophical this and women's studies this. So they're not making it a secret that people go to that college because they probably see themselves very much as liberals and progressives, and they want to learn more about that. And I'm probably sure that when a college first started, they had all good intentions. They wanted to create a space that was artistic and felt safe for people to say what they wanted to say, explore, talk, without feeling like, I don't know, they're going to get condemned or whatever. I'm I'm pretty sure it started off with good intentions, but now it's just a clusterfuck of fuck. So Evergreen College was for a long time celebrated a tradition of, like, it's almost like a day without a Mexican, which that movie itself is kind of racist, but it's kind of like that, but it's like a day without a black person. So all the black students voluntarily leave the campus to sort of try to show the white students or the faculty or whatever how the world would look like if there were no black people, if there were no diversity. And there's some more backstory to that you can look up yourself. And so for one, this year they decided that they don't want to leave the campus. They're going to get the white students to leave the campus. So they put out a memo saying that, hey, by the way, white students, you gotta go because it's not fair that we always have to leave. You gotta go so you can see how it is to be segregated or discriminated or pushed out or whatever. So the difference was that when the black students had to do it, it was always voluntary. They didn't have to leave the campus if they didn't want to leave the campus. If they had to study, if they had an exam, they can stay on campus. And this was they were forcing white students off the campus, that they were making it mandatory. So those were the differences. A professor came out and basically said, like, this isn't really fair because you're not making this voluntary, you should have making this mandatory and kind of making it like, if you don't do it, then you're racist and you're a bigot. And he said something along the lines of that we should really judge people based on our characters and what we do and what we provide to this society and who we are as a human being and as a person, and not on the color of our skin, which I never understand why people get so mad when people say that. I think Martin Luther King also stated something very similar. Not that he was perfect, but you know, whatever. The students decided to throw a fucking fit. Hello! These racist teachers have got to go! In a tantrum and just protest and go off on this teacher about how he is racist and how he's bigot and how he's all these things. He's Hitler, he's a Nazi, which he has no history of being a racist, and he actually has quite the opposite of history of actually being there for minorities, but whatever. And this sort of started of a chain of events of students just losing their fucking marbles and respect for anyone else around them. That's what's going on. So taking it back, like, there's been a lot more investigation of Evergreen College and how it got to this point. I actually heard that there used to be a program once you entered the college, like a reading, writing, assessment program, and if you weren't at the college level, that would provide tutoring and help for you to get you at the college level so you can succeed in school. So if you succeed in school, you can get a job, you can compete, you can be a well-rounded adult, a helping hand in society, a happy person. But they got rid of that, and they also had other programs, like if you wanted to go into certain degrees or you wanted to major in certain areas, that they would assess you and see if you're ready for these classes, and if you weren't, they would give you tutoring, they would help you and stuff like that. And they got rid of that. They got rid of all those things that actually help black and brown students or minority students or students who feel oppressed or whatever. And this is one of the things that I have a very, very big problem with people who claim to be black activists, who claim to be pro-black, who claim to want to uplift the black community when they do the fucking opposite. If you really cared about these black and brown or trans or queer students, wouldn't you do the best that you can to prepare them for the workforce, or to prepare them just for adulthood or just for life in general, by helping them get up to the college level of reading, writing, or helping to prepare them for the majors that they want to get into? Instead, you just completely erase all that and you replace it with the bias learning instead. If you really cared about the students, why would you take away something that would actually help them? Even if you were a teacher that felt like the world was prejudiced and everybody's white, and you want to help these students learn how to voice their pain or their points of view, wouldn't you teach them how to properly communicate by giving them communication courses? Wouldn't you properly teach them how to get their points across by giving them debate classes and learn how to properly debate their points and how to properly articulate what they're trying to say, instead of just teaching them how to just yell racist and yell bigot and point and yell bigot and racist, and that's how you get your point across, and tell people how oppressed you are and just yell it as loud as you can. They're not teaching these students anything that is going to prepare them for the real world. You cannot go into a job interview and just say, like, well, I'm black, brown, and trans, so if you don't hire me, you're a bigot. That's not how you're going to prepare these students. You have to actually teach them something, and they got rid of courses and programs to actually teach students things. So if you care so much about them, why would you do that? There are students who are now coming forward saying that they are scared to actually speak their mind. They're actually scared to voice their opinions. And this is not just white students. These are black, brown, trans students, white students who are coming forward and saying, like, I actually don't agree with them, but I cannot speak my mind. This is college. This is university. This is an institution of higher learning. This is where this is supposed to be like the first place you can really go and have nuanced conversations, philosophical debates, discussions, pick each other's minds, learn and grow and see who you really are as a person, as a human being, as an adult. And they're taking that ability away from students. A liberal college. I don't know, when I was growing up, liberal meant like, do whatever the fuck you want. Let your freak flag fly. Like, say what you want, be who you want, do you, boo. Like, that's what liberal was supposed to be. Liberal wasn't shutting people's opinions down, shutting people's ideology down. Liberal was supposed to be tolerant to everybody. And that is completely changing now. And so a place where people are supposed to be able to go and have conversations is now somewhere where people are going and having their thoughts and their words policed by actually other students, and not like the staff members or anything like, well, actually the staff members too. You know, it's really sad. And again, these people who claim to care about these students and want the best for them is doing everything they can to not prepare them for adulthood. Is actually keeping them stuck in a mindset of adolescence, because only adolescents, you know, they go through that phase of me, everything's about me, neurotic, everything's about me, is what I want, it's my feelings, and that's not preparing them for the real world. So if you care, actually do your job as a teacher and as a faculty member. I have like a theory, and this is my theory, and I think this is for a lot of people who claim to be black activists, is that I feel like a lot of these teachers, the black and brown or trans ones anyway, there is like one main one that a lot of people focus on, as living vicariously through their students. Something happened to them, whether it was something that actually factually happened to them, maybe they have experienced racism, maybe they have been profiled, maybe they have had prejudice, people have been prejudiced against them. Your past can very much paint your perspective of reality. And so, or maybe they're just miserable, maybe she's unhappy, or maybe they're unhappy with the way their life has come out and they want to blame somebody. And they're using their students to frustrate their own anger. They're using their students to frustrate their disappointment in life or whatever like that. And I think that's really selfish, and I really think that's unfair to the students. And I think a lot of people who claim to be black activists do that. They use other people to voice their own feelings. Again, I don't think this teacher has the best interests in these, the best interests of these students. She may feel like, or they may feel like they do, but I don't think they do, because if you did, you would actually prepare these students for the real world. And again, if you really believe that we live in a systemic institution society of racism, then why don't you teach these kids how to beat that? How to get into the system, how to get those jobs, get you to those higher positions. Or maybe she's in a mindset, it doesn't really matter whether a black person is wearing a hoodie or a suit, they're still black, so what's the point of even trying to get out of poverty or get out of the situation I'm in? That if you really felt like you wanted to help these students thrive and be victorious, then why, again, take away programs that would help them actually learn, not actually teaching them how to communicate or how to debate their points articulately or properly, just teaching them how to be this bias training. That's all it is. And that's not going to help them get a job. Like, it's already hard to get a job. They're not going to get a job going into an office and going like, affirmative action, you gotta hire me. I am very angry at this story and very disappointed in the faculty here. I mean, the dean itself, like, he must have been neutered a long fucking time ago. Like, well, you have to ask your students for permission to take a piss. You're the dean of a fucking college. Like, I don't know how he got this job. I feel bad for the students who do disagree and don't feel like they can voice their opinion. I hope they can leave. I hope they can transfer. And honestly, I feel like all these kids should get their money back because they paid for an education and instead they're getting a pity party. So that is my opinion on Evergreen College. I probably won't be bringing this up again unless something new happens. I just wanted to say, because this is nothing. This whole thing isn't new. This isn't like something that is only happening at Evergreen. I actually heard another story about this. I know this video is long. I know it is, so sorry. I actually heard another story about a girl who went to university and she was supposed to write a paper about feminism. And I never had to do this when I was in college, but someone told me this is quite normal, where you have to give your references to your teacher before you turn in or write or finish your paper. And she turned in her references, and her teacher was basically like, no, you can't use any of this. Like, she basically said you can't even use Google, Bing, Yelp, or whatever those any other search engine. You can't go to the library, you can't ask a friend, you can't do any of those things because everything is ran by the patriarchy. And so anything I'm saying, you'll never find proof of it because it doesn't exist, because all the men are trying to cover it up and it's this big giant conspiracy. Instead of maybe you can't find proof of what I'm saying because it actually really is just false. But anyway, so she gave the student a book, and she said you have to get all your references from this book, and she didn't even allow the student the freedom to just read the fucking book herself. She gave the student the chapters, the paragraphs that she wanted the student to read to write her paper. Again, you have a heart for these black and brown students, but instead of giving her the freedom to learn how to think for herself, research for herself, write her own paper that would actually teach her something, instead you are thinking it's more important to brainwash your ideology into the student, so therefore you wrote her paper for her. It's a big problem right now is going to universities. I've always thought for a very long time the educational system is fucked anyway. I've always thought university was just a factory to spit out mindless drones. I do believe in the institution of higher learning, especially in certain instances, like if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer. I do believe in degrees, but in some other things like barista degrees, I don't necessarily think you need to go spend your money on that. But I'm not saying I'm against higher learning. I'm just saying, like, it's fucked right now. It's getting worse and worse and worse, and I mean, it sucks. But anyway, that is the end of this video. I know it's really long. Hopefully all my other videos won't be as long, but they do tend to be long. Even on my other channel, they tend to be long because I want to get a full picture and idea of what I'm actually trying to say. So anyway, I am not saying that I am the moral high ground to everything. I am not saying that I am the God and I'm the be-all to end all and everything like that. Everything I say is correct and right. This is just my stream of consciousness. This is just what I'm thinking and what I believe. I do not represent all black people. Or I do not represent all women. I do not represent all LGBTQ plus people or anything like that. I represent myself, and so I'm open to conversation. If you have a comment, if you agree with me, whether you think that this is a growing problem in university, whether you agree with me with Evergreen, I am actually generally interested in actual intellectual discussions and topics and debates. Everybody is open to having a conversation on this video and also on this channel. But I cannot please everybody's language, so whatever you want to say, feel free to do that. If you want to have more conversations like this, where it's not like extreme left or extreme right, where we're actually trying to maybe pull it apart a little bit, please subscribe to this channel. And if you subscribe, please hit that bell to get notifications when I do upload. Like this video, share this video. Let's have a conversation. Thank you so much. Again, until next time, see you later. Hard to find. I can't be sleepless.